First, good morning and congrats for being here. This is probably the first session of the day after a very long night last night. So yeah, you're all super brave. So we really appreciate having you here. This session, it's about monetizing with physical retail and virtual spaces. And it's also about meeting consumers where they play. So first, again, super excited to have you all here. It's a morning session. It's Friday. I'm still trying to catch up with my jet lag. I don't know about some of you. But today we're super excited and very thrilled to introduce developers to new and innovative ways to generate additional revenue through their games, while at the same time offering players enhanced value and authenticity by enabling them to engage with the brands that they love. I said that, and I do have to ask everyone a question here to make sure that we're all awake. Does anyone here doesn't like making money? All right, I don't see any hands coming up, but it's okay. We welcome everyone, so it's fine. But if you're here about making money and monetizing in your game, but not only about this is about monetization, but we talk about meeting consumers where they play. So this is also about offering new benefits to your players. So I'm Frankie Rodriguez, and I'm the Director of Product for Immersive Commerce Services at Walmart Global Tech. I'll be the main speaker today, but then also joining me on stage, we have Rob Oates. So Rob leads Immersive Commerce Services at Walmart, and let me tell you, Rob is a veteran, both in the retail and also the game space. So Rob used to be a developer himself. So with that, let me take you through what we have in store for you today. We actually have a very packed agenda. So first, I'm going to start by explaining what we mean by this whole concept of physical commerce in game. How does it look like? Are we talking here about, is this a metaverse thing, right? Or we should not talk about that anymore, right? So this is actually making it real. So Rob, I'll switch over to Rob. He's also going to talk about why game developers should be excited about the potential of integrating physical commerce experiences into their games. And also, why players should be excited about having this additional opportunity, how you can bring this additional value to players. Then I'm also gonna showcase why Walmart is here, what Walmart and Unity are doing together to address these needs. And then obviously, I'm gonna show a quick demo, which will pretty much show you how do you be able to subscribe to the service, how you're able to discover it, how you can manage new things using Unity Cloud for your monetization tools, and then more importantly, how you'll be able to integrate commerce into your games using a new commerce SDK. So that's something new that we're excited to introduce today. And then at the end, I'm also going to show some mock-ups, which will kind of give you an idea of how you could actually do this. It's a new concept. It's essentially emerging behavior, even for us, right? So this is, again, it's about enabling commerce, physical, real commerce in a game. So then at the end, it's a long session, right? So we're going to cover a lot of topics. So we're going to save some of the questions towards the end of the session. So again, we have a lot to cover, so let's get going. This is a great question, right? This is why you're here. So what exactly is physical commerce in virtual spaces, and how does it actually look like? Well, let me tell you, maybe we gather all of you here because we're going to show you how to build a virtual Walmart where your players can actually shop for toilet paper. And no, I know that was a terrible joke, but that's not what we're here for. But I'm super excited. We've been waiting to be able to show this to you. So super exciting day for us to be able to demonstrate this. But what we can say is that last year, sort of incognito, and even with zero marketing, we conducted several in-game commerce experiments with select players in different games. And what I want to do today, let me show you what we did in collaboration with Lockwood Publishing in their game, Avakin Life. So Avakin Life, it's an avatar social system. So, players go hang out, they dress up their avatar, they can buy things in virtual, they can also, furnish their apartments, their homes, so they engage in a social space. We work with Lockwood to build this Scoop branded experience. For those of you that don't know, Scoop is a private Walmart brand, and it's a female brand. So we work with Lockwood's designer to create the virtual versions of items that actually exist in real life. And what we did is that we enabled this flow so players can actually shop for the actual products that they can get in game. So they can do things like picking up their size, their colors, what we call variants, and they can even choose where they want that product to be shipped and how they want to pay for it. And this goes by so quick that I'm even trying to still catch up my breath. But in the end, they get an email confirmation and they get a reward, which is that virtual copy of that item. So you see the character walking happily, and then the next day they receive that product at their house. The experience was super high quality. It kept users and players immersed in the game, while at the same time, it boosted monetization opportunities for our early partners and also helped them earn through Walmart affiliate programs, which they can earn commissions from those sales. So let's talk a little bit about some of the data, because this will kind of explain also the reason why we're here. So in general, this proof of concept proved our hypothesis. And that was that players felt that by including real brands and products in their game, it actually made that experience feel more real, more legitimate, and more authentic. While at the same time, it also helped developers, discover this new and potential way to increase their revenue. We also found that with this validation, players remain engaged in the game. And again, because that game felt more real and more authentic because they actually obtained something that's tangible. And then this data also proved that players appreciate that additional layer of realism and having the opportunity to not only interact with brands that they already know, but also be able to discover new products and be able to share this with their friends and their community. But yeah, that sounds good, sounds pretty rosy and amazing, but it was not. While the results were positive, we got positive feedback from the players and also the developers. The big challenge that we face, as you can imagine, doing something completely new and innovative, this took a lot of time to build. So it really looked polished. It looked slick. It kept users immersed in the game, but the implementation took too long. Why it took too long, right? So we have to work with things like legal, like figuring out, you cannot sell to kids or minors. So figuring out different regulatory and compliance issues, so working with legal for those of you that have to work with legal, right, so this will take a long time. So we understand something like this is not feasible for developers. It is a very competitive space, so you need to be able to move quickly. So that's something that we completely understand. And adding those additional tasks will just introduce more barriers, which essentially creates more bottlenecks. So we were really motivated to overcome those issues. So this is why, if we move on to the next slide, this is why, as you can imagine, when we talk about scale, when we talk about opening this up and democratizing this to developers, this is why we made the decision to partner with Unity. So this is why Walmart is here at this conference. We understand that by leveraging Unity's robust platform and all their in-game monetization services, we can essentially streamline this implementation so developers could integrate this perhaps weeks, maybe even days, depending on the type of game. Rather than before when we did this during our early prototypes that took months. So we could do that, but I think so when we showed Avakin Life, it felt like it was very polished. It looked very slick. So we want to do this. When we do this with Unity, we also don't want to sacrifice things like the quality of the game or the experience and also it making it effective. So when we make in-game commerce, it's part of our motivation and part of our inspiration for our team is to make in-game commerce a self-service, low-touch experience for all developers. We want to take care of doing all the hard work for doing things like protecting user data. Not only that, but do all the order fulfillment, managing all the legal aspects for different regulatory areas. So that way developers can focus on what they do best. And we also designed this collaboration, and Rob will talk about this a bit more, to provide a more comprehensive set of tools that would address those challenges that developers would otherwise face by having to integrate real brands and products into their games. So this is something that's new for a lot of you that have not had that opportunity to be able to engage with those brands before. So like I mentioned, we're going to look into more specifics. There's a lot of good data that we're going to be sharing with you today that hopefully is going to help you understand how we're going to solve these challenges with working with Unity. But also, we want to tell you, and Rob's going to talk about this, like why developers should care about retail, but more importantly, how we already know that players are engaging on retail. So this data is not going to help you understand like what we're trying to solve, but also the importance of integrating commerce in game and how this can drive further engagement and how this can also increase monetization. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Frankie. Don't drink my water.
I don't want to drink your water. Use a clicker.
So, why retail should matter to game devs? Who here works at a small studio, indie studio? Can I see some hands? A couple of you? Okay. And who currently works at a large studio, large company, or has worked at a large company? All right, yeah, so you guys know what I'm talking about. So I've always been a huge gamer. As Frankie mentioned, I started my career in the game industry. I've shipped a bunch of titles. It was always my dream to make games. So why am I working for Walmart and up here talking to you about selling physical goods in your games, right? Well, in my career in game development, a lot of stuff changed over time. In the beginning, it was very difficult to actually build the games. Usually you also were building an engine at your studio at the same time, right? But if you built the game, there was a good chance that you could make money from it. Stuff has kind of changed, right? Now there's a lot of tools out there that make it much easier to build and ship your game, but it's getting harder and harder to succeed once you've built it, right? Content creation costs are going up, user acquisition costs are going up, there's new regulations every year, and the hurdles are getting higher and more numerous, and there's still platform fees, right? So it's tough, but we're starting to see a change in player behavior, right? When I was young, the tolerance for monetization in games was very low. If you introduced something like Horse Armor DLC, for example, players would take to the internet and set it on fire. And the idea that players would enjoy buying something in a video game was a little foreign to me when I joined. But we're starting to see this change in behavior, right? And so when we talk about why retail should matter to game devs, a big part of it is financial, but a lot of it is also your players are changing, right, with each generation. And you want to maintain your relevancy to your player base, right? So I see us at a sort of inflection point, and this portion of the talk that I'm going to give you is applicable in general, like why retail should be interesting, not necessarily why this particular implementation or partnership between Walmart and Unity is interesting, but why as a game developer this should matter to you, right? So first I wanted to point out, it already matters to successful platforms, right? You may have seen some of this, and this is just a handful of examples. The biggest and most successful game development studios and publishers out there are already working with brands. So some of the examples up here you can see there's like Louis Vuitton in League, toys in Fortnite, various clothing brands in all kinds of avatar-based games, and Chipotle is doing something in Roblox. And if you search for brands in games, you'll find hundreds or maybe thousands of other examples, right? So that's interesting, but it made me stop and think why these games are some of the most successful games on earth with the largest player bases. They're driving tons of revenue. Why are they bothering with physical brands in their spaces, right? And once we understand why it's interesting to them, that's great. They've got huge teams of licensing managers and lawyers and all these other things, and the brands are going to go to them because they've got these huge user bases. But how do we make that achievable for everyone, right? So I want to talk about the financial opportunity. This graph shows a bunch of stuff, annual revenue for various game and retail segments. You can see on the left side there, like a successful game, at least what I would consider to be a successful game, might generate $1 billion a year. Major UGC platform might do $5 billion. The global games content revenue is close to $200 billion a year at this point, I think, and maybe a little bit more if you put game ads on top of that. But then on the right side of the graph, you can see Walmart's revenue is bigger than the entire game industry revenue combined. And even that is dwarfed, obviously, by the total US retail revenue, which is then dwarfed by the global retail revenue. And the crazy thing is, like, this looks like a nice kind of linear graph, but that's because it's in log. If I switch the graph to linear, wow, look at that. All of the revenue generated by the game industry, this guy right here, I don't know if you can see that in the back, it's like 1 pixel high. It's barely visible when you place it side by side next to the amount of money that flows through retail, right? So even though players are increasingly spending money in games, right, and younger generations are spending more money in games, and they say that they value their digital lives as well as they value their physical lives, they're still spending 150 times as much money on physical junk as they are on digital goods, right? So this behavior already exists in your players, it exists in you. You buy stuff, right? There's stuff you need, there's stuff you want, and then there's stuff that is an opportunity, and you're already gonna buy it. And you've set aside most of your money for those physical things already. So we're not talking about creating a new user behavior, right? The stuff's already being bought. Players are already spending the money. So the way we think about it is, do we believe that we can route a small sliver, the smallest sliver of this, 100th of it, through your games, right? We're not talking about taking that whole bar and moving it over into games. We're talking about, can we carve a sliver of this out? And instead of them going to Walmart.com or stopping into a Walmart store or anywhere else, can we get them to buy in your game, right? Can we make you the vendor? Can you become a department store for products that are relevant to your players, right? So this is why those big companies are working with brands. Right. So that's great, but maybe you're not League. Most of us aren't League. How can a smaller developer do something in physical if they don't kind of have the same amount of users and things, right? And maybe they don't have the same kind of IP push. So we know from the graph that there's this huge universe of retail revenue, and we want to get at it. Big game companies have started to figure it out. They're still experimenting, but it's out of reach of the small developers, right? Like Louis Vuitton is not coming to a small indie game and saying, I want to access your 500,000 MAU, right? Mm-hmm. They would love if they could do that, but it's not going to scale. Like they don't have enough people going around licensing. They're going to go for the easy wins, the big wins, right? And same thing, like if you're a small studio, you don't have a licensing person to go around and kind of knock on doors all day, right? There's just no money for that, right? So Frankie will talk later about how we're solving that for you. But what I want to talk about here is how you can kind of leverage what we're doing to make money, right? So the first one is you can sell your own merchandise. Maybe you own an IP and you want to sell plushies, t-shirts, and pins and that sort of stuff. You could direct your players to a separate merchandise website, but why do that when you've already got them engaged in your app and you can just sell the stuff right there, right? Now, maybe you don't have your own merchandise, but you'd like to. That's great. Walmart has a third-party marketplace. You can put your products up there, right? You can have them, print on demand. You can plumb it into Shopify. We can ingest Shopify in our marketplace, and then your items can appear there in your game, right? And then you get, of course, the sales revenue and the affiliate cut for promoting your own products, but don't tell me I said that. So then the second use case that might make sense for a lot of you, when I was a Unity developer, we made licensed games. A lot of you probably make licensed games. You can sell licensed merchandise, right? So like these two guys. You can take your game, find products in the Walmart catalog that are aligned with the IP, and you can pull those in and push those to the players, right? So if I'm, for example, playing one of these titles, I'm probably also going to play the physical version of the game, right? But why would you let that user escape from your game and go to somebody else's website or store and let them make the money on the sale when you already know they're a fan of that IP? You've got them, right? So sell them the stuff while you've got them, become the store, right? And then the third one here, maybe you don't want to create your own IP empire and you're not working on a licensed game. You just want to make a little bit of extra money. Maybe you make ad-based arcade games and you're really good at that. And that's what you want to do, and you're just looking to make a few extra bucks here and there without worrying about creating your own merchandise. Great. We can sell whatever products your players want, right? Now, today that's going to be kind of manual, but as we continue to build out the service, there's going to be more and more intelligence that works its way in about getting the right products in front of the right players at the right time. So whether it's gamer fuel or programmer socks, we can sell it. So that whole section was about why this should matter to you, right? Lots of money talk. But how do we know that this already matters to your players? And we're not creating something that they don't want. It's not going to add value. It's going to make them take to Reddit and light you guys up if you integrate it in your game, right? So Frankie mentioned we already ran some experiments. It was positive. But we also wanted to look at kind of some market research and trends and things. And that's what this section is going to talk about. So first off, we already know that players are big spenders, right? And I love this example because people, if they don't know games, they're always blown away by it. And even a lot of people that know games don't know this, but Pokemon is the top grossing IP in the world. Beats everything else. Bigger than Star Wars, bigger than Harry Potter, bigger than Marvel, all of it. But if you look at the graph, the video game sales is just this red chunk right here. All this other stuff is merch. That's all the money they spend being a fan, right? And so we know that players are willing to spend a lot more money being a fan on physical goods than they are on the actual content. But does it translate more generally, right? And we know it does already, right? Because we saw that big graph earlier. They're spending tons of money on stuff. But the reason that we know that players want this method of buying things is because people need a third place. You guys familiar with the third place idea, right? So that's somewhere that's not your home and it's not your work and it's where you go to hang out with people in your community, right? For a long time in the US and I think many other parts of the world, the third place for young people to go and socialize and hang out and be cool was malls. Was that true for you guys also? You guys hang out at malls? No, not you. Too cool for malls, that's fun. So that's changed, right? Like kids don't go hang out at malls anymore. They're hanging out in social media and Discord and all these other platforms. So there's been a lot of stuff that changed. The internet connected world has led people to move from malls to social media to these 3D and 2D hangout spaces. And while social media has had some success in selling products, right? Like you're doom scrolling, your social media app of choice, and their ads are pretty good. At least they're good for me. They've kind of got my number. But that's not actually social shopping, right? Like I'm not hanging out with my friends and looking at clothes or buying drinks or whatever. But we see in data that Gen Z is spending even more time in games than they do in social media, right? But at the same time, they want to hang out where they shop. So there's this disconnect, right? And this bit here blew my mind when I found out. He actually shared this stat with me. There's an IKEA game on Roblox that's the number 3 experience on Roblox with 2.6 million MAU. When I was a developer, I would have killed to have 2.6 million MAU, and I never would have believed that it was from a brand-based game, So we're seeing that players, they like going into these spaces with real brands, and they like interacting with real brands, and they think it's cool, which is wild, right? We're at that inflection point. So some other reasons about why we know it matters. Gen Z spends about 12 hours a week hanging out with friends in virtual worlds. They spend about half that much time hanging out in person, right? So the majority of the social time for the younger generations is online, and it's increasingly so when we start to look at the patterns in Gen Alpha. But despite that, and this is another stat that I struggled to believe at first because it's certainly, my kids don't know anything about this, but 70% of Gen Z polled have said that physical retail locations offer fun places to gather and socialize. Like, how do they even know that? They've never experienced that, right? But if you take these two stats together, there's a huge disconnect, right? Like they're spending more and more time hanging out with their friends in these virtual spaces, but they also want to hang out in actual physical locations, and they're struggling to do that, right? So if you take those two together, there's this gap, right? The youngins, they yearn for the malls. They want to hang out where they're shopping, right? This is what we're seeing, and this is kind of what came out in the data when we ran our experiments. When we're going and looking in data and other sources, we're seeing these indicators. And so all of that is kind of my long, rambling way of saying, it should matter to you because of the money, but it matters to your players because they want to shop around other players. Like it's what they want to do, right? And we're seeing that in the data already. Yep. So I'm going to turn it back over to Frankie for the rest of the talk. He's going to take you back to the actual partnership we've got with Unity and what we're trying to do to solve this for you. And yeah, thank you for listening to my rambling.
So Rob shared a lot of data that when we did our research, it was just purely mind-blowing. Like looking at, again, the size of the retail market segment, especially at the global scale. When we looked at that, we start to realize, so how do we help developers, get a piece of, this market? So we've been talking about how can we help build tools so you can effectively access this market, but not only that, your players are already engaging. So we want to have a place for them that they can discover these new brands, and they're already going to engage, right? So they're already engaged outside your games. So we're just bringing this into your experiences. So when I presented earlier at the beginning of the session, so we talk about the early experiments. We show you what we did in Avakin Life. So the data essentially prove that players are eager. They're eager to engage. Some of us were skeptical, to be honest, but players are actually eager to engage. They were buying physical products in-game, and not only this was a potential for the increased revenue for you guys, but it also enhanced their engagement in the game. One story that I want to tell you, from that experiment, the biggest complaint we had, you know what it was? That we didn't have enough products. This is an experience that we had zero marketing dollars, zero. We just put it out there because it was an experiment. And many of us that come from a gaming background, we wanted to let's go slow. Let's go test, see how people react to this. It's something new, it's emergent behavior. So again, people were going to Reddit to complain that there are not enough items, and then guys were complaining because we're just selling ladies' dresses. That was the biggest complaint. So what do we realize? What do we do now?
Yeah, it works.
So it works, but how do we make this possible for everyone? That was a scale issue. Like, how do we solve the scale issue? That's the challenge that we're facing. Like, how do we make this accessible, available to all? Imagine all the legal issues that you have to deal with, taking payment in games, asking people for their information, new and emerging behavior, having people trust that. So this is why we continue to ask ourselves and challenge our teams, guys, let's drive this integration closer to zero, as low touch as we can, so that we can help bring immersive commerce or physical commerce to everyone, especially to all developers. So we share, the reason we're here. So we decided to partner with Unity to kind of address a lot of these issues. We know, in working with Unity, they're the leader in democratizing in-game development and operations for developers. And we know that by working with Unity, we can make in-game commerce and this in-game commerce integration seamless for all developers. For those of you that have been working with Unity, right, you get the right tools so that you can actually launch your game a lot quicker. And this way, we can allow developers to focus rather than having to deal with all the, like, how do I integrate commerce into my experience? How do I work with brands? I never worked with a brand before. Like, how do I do that? So we try to bring this and make it easy and seamless for all of you. At the same time, we don't want to sacrifice things like quality and engagement. So I'm just going to take some time and read through all these numbers. Just kidding. Terrible at jokes. But there's a lot of numbers on this slide. And the message behind it is that when you combine the largest physical retailer on the planet with the original game development disruptor who, as we all know, has more experience helping developers build, ship, and monetize their game than any other game development platform out there. So now together, all this problem we've been talking about, how do we scale this? How do we make it available to everyone? Together, we can solve this, physical retail in virtual spaces scale problem. And we are going to do this by delivering to you guys a new Unity monetization service, which essentially lives at the intersection of retail and gaming. So this is the moment I've been so excited to show everyone the demo. So before I go to the demo and before something breaks, because if something doesn't break, it's not a real demo. It's not going to be standing right there next to the computer. But I'm going to introduce a few new topics that you're going to hear me talk about today. So I want to make sure that you're all familiar with it. So first, we're going to introduce two concepts. There's a concept of, so how do I surface we talk about how do you enable physical retail in games or virtual spaces. So I'm going to showcase how you're going to be able to do that, and we call that a commerce opportunity. Maybe marketing will change that name one day, but for now, we just call it ComOp for short. So I'm going to show you how to do that on the editor, and then on the Unity Cloud side, we're going to introduce this new concept of what we call product packages. Again, I could change one day, but so product packages is essentially like building a product campaign. So let's start by showing you how you're going to be able to discover this product. So it's Unity Cloud, so it's a monetization service. So you're going to go to Unity Cloud, and you have to sign up, and we'll show that later. There's a beta program that we're running next year. But once you get accepted into the program, before this becomes available for everyone, you can find the Walmart Immersive Commerce SDK, and you'll have access to all the instructions on how to integrate this. And you'll see later, it's literally 4 lines of code. So this will take you through what you need to do on the editor side to integrate the SDK. So why don't we build some product packages? Since it's Friday, I'm still trying to catch up with my jet lag and all the time walking around and going to sessions. I'm going to stick with energy drink because I feel like we need one right now. So I'm going to build a product package around energy drinks, and I'm going to be taking you through a custom product package. So this is if you want to create something that's, you want to refine it and make it, closer to your game so you can pick products. If you want to do that, that's fine. We have a way to do that. If you feel like that's way too much, I don't have research to do that. So we'll have a way to make this more, automated for you, and we can figure things out by genre. But as you can see, I can search. It's pretty contextual. You can type in energy drinks. You could do brands. I can search for toys. I can search for birthday party. So you name it. So you can do, contextual searches, and this surfaces products that are available on the Walmart catalog. So this talks to our service in the back end. I can manage what products I have if I want to remove products or add products. And once I save it, I go back to the dashboard, and here I can see all my product packages. And this is all the items that I have in that particular product package. And product packages will automatically route into the editor, into the client, and we'll show that in a second. So I can do things like see, product description. This is what your players will see. So we take care of managing what's required, what information is mandatory, so players can see that. And if I don't want this product anymore because it's not performing well, I can remove it here. I can also remove it back in the dashboard. We could take it off because it's not selling well. If products are out of stock, you don't have to worry about it. We also manage that, and we surface an equivalent product to that so that you can always maintain your users engaged. So now we go into the editor. So on the editor, once I get the SDK installed, I go to Window and then Commerce Opportunity, and we'll have some templates available for you to get started. I'm only showing a few templates, so right now I'm just changing here like colors and backgrounds, and I can remove the logo. But this is ultimately what your players will see. And again, this is just one of the templates. There's other templates, and then it's a new service, so we'll have an option for you guys to fully integrate this into your game UI and design so that your designers are happy. But you can see this surfaces all the information. Once you ship it, and once you're running, you can assess your funnel performance through the dashboard. So some of you might be familiar with some of those tools if you use their ad monetization services from Unity. So all the typical stuff, you can sort by date, you can sort by categories. Helps you as a developer have a more data-driven decision or make data-driven decisions on how products are performing. So I can assess things like my conversion rate, I can see impressions. And I'm not showing this today, but there's also a tab that you can assess your performance. So you can kind of get a prediction on how your monetization is looking month over month. So yeah, of course, you could do different, change in settings to change your visualization. So it was a lot to cover. I'm just trying to catch my breath again. So I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. We're going to kind of try to save some of those questions till the end. If we don't address your questions today, we have our booth in the sponsor section. Don't be afraid to stop by. And there, either you can come to me or Rob, and we can kind of, show you a bit more on the demo with more detail. So I think I already lost count. How many times I said physical, commerce, and virtual spaces? I probably lost count already, so many times. But the one thing that I think we have not mentioned yet, like, how do I monetize? So, we've been talking about this, creating engagement and, how we notice that players are actually engaging. But how does the monetization structure actually looks like? So, again, the first question we ask today is, who doesn't like to make money? If you don't, it's okay. But if you're here because our session is set monetizing. So Rob covered a lot of eye-opening data around the retail market's size. And like we said, this is an untapped market. So we want to make this available for you guys so you can tap into this. But in terms of revenue, how does it look like? Like, stop talking. Let's talk about the money already. So I can tell you, though, that we've been super excited about conversion rates and basket sizes and what we've been seeing so far. So if we talk let's talk eCPM. So if we talk about eCPM, it's a new service. So initially, we project that you could see revenue that might be somewhere in the range, like an eCPM in the range of what you earn with interstitial ads. And being a new service, we will continue to make changes and optimization to both the merchandising and how it gets presented, so it becomes more, closer to what your users want, so we have better recommendations. So we've enhanced that. We're also going to enhance the product presentation, how physical commerce shows up in your game. So over time, we expect in our projections that conversion rates will generate revenues that could be somewhere around what you see with rewarded video integrations. And I'm mentioning ads, and we'll have a slide where we're going to show you how is this the same as ad. Is it going to take from my? I don't want this to take from my, all the money I make on ads. So we're going to cover that on the next slide. So I usually say, but wait, there's more. So there's more. So we talk a lot about bringing physical retail into virtual spaces, but this being Walmart also and working with Unity, we want to make sure that you can take advantage of, some of the other services that we have. So we mentioned here, there's this Walmart Marketplace program. So what is this? So, some of you may be familiar with this. So as a third-party marketplace provider, what this means, think about it. I could sell my own merchandise in my own game. You don't have to do that either. I can sell this in anybody's game. So that's another possibility. So you can carry your own merchandise. Maybe you have an existing store. So you can have those same items in the game and keep your users engaged in your game. So they don't have to go to another browser or anything like that. And I have the QR code on the screen. If any of you want to figure out know more about Marketplace, you can scan the code. If not, make sure you can look it up. You can figure out how to get more details about the program and the financial benefits. And before I talk about the next feature or the next monetization feature, when you sell your own products in your own game, just make sure my boss doesn't listen to this one. So you can also, thank you, Rob. So you can collect affiliate revenue. So you sell your own merchandise, you earn revenue for your own sales, and then you can also earn commissions if you put that in your own game. Sounds like double dipping, but it's legal. I think it's been proved. We'll see if I still be working. No, it's proved. It's good. It works. And aside from Marketplace, there's more. So you know that, with the size of Walmart's channels, we could also help developers with user acquisition. So through Walmart channels, we could do things like cross promotion so that we can, kind of surface your game to our own community on the Walmart side. And then, it keeps getting better. So we could do things like impression-based revenue. And since we're opening up a new channel for brands to engage with your user base, we're looking also at doing affiliate bounties that could be sponsored by those brand partners. Before we move on to the next slide, I do want to emphasize, like I said a moment ago, that this integration and this implementation does not need to take away from your ad revenue, and we'll show that in a second. We see it as something that's more complementary and more incremental. And then, in case you're wondering, so this feature is going to be open up for US players at the beginning, but we have plans to expand this to other countries in the future. So starting with US players first. If you're a developer that has a game in another country, so we could definitely also explore where you can even sell to those US players. All right, so I mentioned ads. So how is this? Is this different? Is it going to take from my ad revenue? So let's talk about how this is more of a complementary or incremental service or incremental revenue. So how is that even possible? Well, the beauty about immersive commerce is that you can do commerce opportunities, again, like I mentioned earlier, so you can tie commerce opportunities and physical retail in your games where ads won't necessarily fit. This is where you want to take advantage of it. So, for example, as a player myself, at the end of a level, I watch a full video ad. That's typical behavior. So instead of doing that, well, why just not show up a physical commerce opportunity at the end of a level? That's fine. Some of you may end up doing that, and that may work for you. But right now, the way I see it is like, well, that could take away from my ad revenue. I don't want to do that. So instead of doing this, what you could do is like maybe take advantage. There might be items in your games that your players tend to engage more, for example. And you could do this in many ways. I could just pop in a button that says buy in real life, or maybe I can make that object selectable, like we show in the Avakin Life demo, so that players can actually engage with this and that, hey, that item becomes available. There's a commerce opportunity that's attached to an asset or to a product in your game. So this is one of the things that I really like about integrating commerce into game, because we talk about engagement, and I don't want to disrupt that player engagement. So what you're essentially doing is tapping into that entire market segment that we showed you earlier without breaking any of that engagement. So, you're not sending users, like sometimes I hate this, but I don't have to go to another website, or I don't have to, launch, some other app and play another game then just to get something. I just remain engaged in your game. So we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon so that we can have some time for Q&A. But before we do that, I know we went through the demo and we show you this is how I put my commerce opportunities together, how I build product packages. But before we close, I did want to show you how this could look like with some, we can take some games here for reference, some mock-ups. So we pick some games that we feel like, hey, this could be, that makes sense for this session. This could be anything, to be honest. But I know it takes time to figure out hey, this is not a browser. It's not a web view client that I had to maintain. It's all done natively on my game. So let's take a look at some of these examples here. So the first one that we're going to look at here, just for reference as a mock-up, it's Garden Joy. And Garden Joy, it's a game by Burlingame Studios. And this is a lifestyle type game. So players go here to remodel their homes and gardens to their heart's content. So, you can see that, you can surface relevant products that align with the in-game experience. So this product, they could seamlessly be integrated at different touch points within the game. So again, you want to keep that user and player engagement and make it feel authentic. So you don't want to disrupt that gameplay. That's the key thing here. In the case of Garden Joy, they already have an in-app type store, so players can buy in-game, right? They can buy those products to do home decoration, just part of the gameplay. So they could decide that, hey, I want to make that lantern to be able, users to be able to buy that in real life and engage that way. And they could do that with every single product if they wanted. They can pick some, just like any other game. That's up to you at the end. And you can see that immersive commerce also doesn't need to take away from things like rewarded video ad integrations, or if you have offer walls, you can see that on the second screen that they can be integrated side by side. Again, these are some of our ideas. You guys are the experts, right? We're bringing the tools so that I'm sure you guys will develop things that are completely new to what we've been talking about, and that's what actually makes me excited. And as you can see, the user can check out entirely within the game. So it is an in-app purchase, basically. But they're transacting through our backend. They don't need to open up a browser. Again, this is not WebView. It's not a WebView client. It's purely native. So the user can buy that lantern and hit that Buy Now button, and, well, next day they get a lantern at the doorstep. That's pretty cool. And you see that brand there that says Better Homes and Garden. So we think that many developers that, again, never worked with a brand before, it's like, how do I even do that? I don't have the resources to do that. Some of you may end up working with brands. And this is what we're excited because we're creating this new channel that allows your player base to engage with those brands and all through your game. So you're basically building that connection and that engagement. This is another mock-up that it shows like it's a very slick integration in my opinion because it shows how products can live side by side to rewards. Again, being immersive commerce, we keep talking about it being incremental revenue and complementary to ads. Again, just another idea of what you could do. And in terms of products, I think Rob mentioned this earlier too, you can bring up your own products if you want to do that. If you have your own exclusive, you can sell that in your game. You could do that through Marketplace, and then you can monetize there too and sell that on other games. So that's another option. Or maybe you want to do items that are exclusives that are available in your game only, so and monetize that way. Or you could do other, you could do brands, or, whatever you want to do, whatever works with you, with your player base. So in this case, we have this alpaca socks, and we have this alpaca plushie, and because who here doesn't like plushie? So since we like plushies, I'm going to take you through that user journey. I want to buy that plushie for $6.99. So again, it's a highly integrated, the concept, it's a highly integrated experience, so users can even read item description if they want to do that all within the game. This is all surfaced by the SDK. When you do that SDK integration, so having all that information that has to be included will be there, but because I generally don't read anything, I just want to buy this, so I'm going to hit that checkout button. And now, me as a player, if I need to be able to know, like, oh, sorry, wait, what I want to buy this, like, how do you ship it to me? How do you figure that out? So with our integration, so the players don't need to type in things like their address if they want. So they feel that the information is safer. We store all that data in our backend, and it's enough to the player be able to make a decision like, okay, I want to ship this to this Unite Road. Sounds very familiar to Unity. And I'm going to pay with this credit card, and then there's taxes and fees. Like, how do I do that? So that's all handled by us with knowing that user data. So we do all the tax calculations. So it's Walmart is a big retailer company, so we can figure that out. And then things like fraud detection, or things like, so wait a second, am I storing that private information in my servers as a developer? And no, so you don't have to worry about storing payment data, anything like that. All we share with you is it's a random ID that represents players on our backend, and again, so you don't have to worry about any of that, and also all the fulfillment and order processing and returns and cancellations and all that. We'll handle it. So since I mentioned order management, I've been talking a lot, and I want to buy this thing. So I'm going to hit this buy now button, and guess what's going to happen? Maybe an alpaca will show up at some time. Guess what? So this is what makes in-game commerce real. So this is, so your players will get their plushie. How will they feel about your game? Again, like they'll be able to engage, discover new products, get things that they love, things that they were already going to buy elsewhere. They were just not available to you guys. So yeah, so this is how we make it real. And sorry, I cannot give the alpaca away. All right, so let's look at this is the last integration because the mock-up, because we gotta go to Q&A. But the thing about our integration is that it allows you to surface products, and you can highlight items that are, based on what your players want. So if your game has the opportunity to do something like digital twins, well, you can do that. So perhaps players can get the physical item, you can reward them with the digital version, like we show that with Avakin Life. That's an option, you don't have to. It's just one example. The point is that when you incorporate those real brands and products, you're making your game feel more real and more legitimate. And before we close, I don't know if you all can see it in the back, but there's a banner ad in the bottom of that screen. This is what I like about physical commerce also. That is an example where you can have both coexist. And if your game has, players buy the full version, the no-ad version, well, think about it, they can still engage, even if, ads is not an option. So in the end, we see this as a win-win. So your players can get what they already want, they're already going to buy, while developers can, earn additional revenue by tapping into the service. So with that, you've been an amazing audience, considering that it's Friday morning on a long week, and after probably trying to recover from jet lag. So it's been a pleasure having you here and taking you through our solution. And we're super excited to see what developers will come up. It's a new service. We're super excited about all the innovation you guys will do with this service. And yes, please scan this code. This is so you can sign up for the beta. It's starting to fill up, so I kind of encourage you to hurry up and scan it before it gets full. So if you want to be one of our early participants and start, getting this and this service from the beginning. Don't worry if you didn't get a chance to scan. I'll keep it on the next screen. The beta is going to start early next year, so this is why we're trying to fill up those seats now. And yeah, just in case you didn't get a chance to scan it, again, you can stop by our booth and ask any questions we won't be able to address today. But with that, let's just open up for any questions if you guys are awake.